Hello and welcome to Planet Waves TV and Starcast. My name is Eric Francis Coppolino, your friendly neighborhood astrologer. Tonight's edition is to accompany the Thursday article and horoscope for the 14th of March 2024. Thank you for joining me as ever. It is good to be with you. In today's edition, my plan is to mostly cover the March 25th penumbral lunar eclipse, the eclipse of the moon that precedes the all-encompassing, extremely exciting, much talked about by me anyway, April 8th, 4/8, total solar eclipse that streaks across the North American continent. The last one of our lifetimes to do that, and really only the second total eclipse, and according to Daniel Giamario, the fourth eclipse where the path of annularity in our lifetimes crosses the American continent, for whatever that's worth. But I also want to mention the astrology of Princess Catherine, that is to say, commonly known as Kate Middleton, actually properly called Catherine, Princess of Wales, or Catherine Windsor. But before I do that, I just want to mention the current astrology. As right now, as of this moment, the moon is in late Taurus, making a lovely sextile to the sun. Taurus is one of the moon signs, so those being Cancer and Taurus. And so hopefully you are having an appropriately calm and steady day, matching that astrology. Then the next thing that happens is that tonight, the moon, tonight being Thursday night, the moon enters Gemini at 11:15 and 27 seconds Eastern Daylight Time, and will remain in Gemini through the weekend and into Sunday, when St. Patrick's Day, when it enters Cancer at 5:40 a.m. 5:40 and 16 seconds, in case you're counting. 5:40 a.m. Eastern Time. All times in this podcast are given in Eastern Time. So that's that. The moon is waxing toward full phase. When the moon is waxing toward full phase, and that full phase is an eclipse of the moon, we are officially in eclipse season. Which I think we will be, in my view, for another probably 6 weeks, because there'll be first lunar eclipse, then this tremendous solar eclipse, and then I figure by the next lunation we are moving into new territory. But as I've said a few times, we are in a concentrated cluster of events that included the Pisces new moon that happened on Sunday, and then other little events between now in the full moon penumbral eclipse, meaning that the moon passes through the outer shadow of the Earth and dims out slightly. Those are my favorite kind of eclipses to see, because you still get some moonlight and a tremendously beautiful sense of perspective in terms of where we are in the solar system, and I think, a clue as to where we are in the cosmos. And then the conjunction of Jupiter and Uranus on the 20th, and then the entry of Sedna into Gemini on the 27th, 28th, and the entry of Jupiter into Gemini. It's going to be quite an exciting spring, and I really haven't seen or felt or had such a sense of excitement about any astrological events, particularly with eclipses, since the summer of 1999. So I'll soon be releasing the August 1999 monthly horoscope to kind of give you a little taste of that lightning in a bottle. So subscribers and Substack readers, please stay tuned. Okay, so very briefly, I'm not generally a follower of the royals, but like most people, I take a little bit of interest in it, and because I've worked as an astrologer in England and have been associated with many British astrologers, I got something of a knack for, at least making, paying some attention to royal astrology. Of course, the most interesting person was Diana, Princess of Wales, and her 2 charts provide an excellent teaching experience for when seemingly conflicting data works in both cases. So Diana, Princess of Wales data is got a C conflicting rating from the Rodden's system. But my eminent colleague, Jeffrey Cornelius, devoted a whole chapter in his book, The Moment of Astrology, to working with these 2 seemingly conflicting charts, and it's really quite fascinating because both of the charts work. I have my preference. So when I went looking for, now Princess Catherine, the wife of Prince William, Prince of Wales, who is the heir apparent to the British crown when his father Charles either abdicates or passes it to him, abdicates or dies. So I went looking for Catherine's birth data, and she too has conflicting data. Kensington Palace has refused to release birth time on her. They've been approached by astrologers, as is always the case in England, and they politely declined. But someone claiming to be an astrologer who was engaged by the people close to the royal family to produce a compatibility chart for William and Catherine ahead of their wedding, which is a stupid thing to do, but nonetheless, this apparently is the case. The report was published in the Astrological Journal and then republished by Astrodienst, 2 credible sources, 2 among a very few credible sources in the astrology world give us a 7 p.m. birth time. However, that's not enough for me, and to have someone say that. So this is the stack of charts that I have reviewed as of last night to get a sense of whether this is accurate data. They include William's charts, William's progressions, the chart for the royal wedding. I haven't gone to when the kids were born. Usually the firstborn will give a clue. And based on my not cursory, hours long, I mean, you could do this for years, but I am pretty good at this. And it does seem like this chart, the Leo rising chart, checks out because there's so many events that come up with Leo and Aquarius on the angles, and a strong Leo signature in the chart, which point back to her ascendant, and she certainly is a Leonine woman. That also can count if you're, that's kind of a sniff test for the ascendant. She's a very regal person. I think we can all agree an elegant presence and someone with a degree of charm, if not modesty, approaching that of Diana, Princess of Wales. Diana, one of the most modern people ever to step into public life in our lifetimes, and many people miss her every day. But I'm here. I can tell you this much: that this Leo chart looks pretty good. And this Leo rising, and if you'll notice all of the this kind of web that I've drawn into the chart, all of which comes back to Chiron retrograde in her 10th house. And this placement of Chiron fits her. The retrograde can be read as reluctancy. Excuse me, my voice is not cooperating at the moment, can be read as reluctancy to be in such a public and visible role up here in the 10th house. And then it also describes many, many interconnections. Chiron is talking to the moon and the nodes, and it's square the ascendant and the descendant. And then here it's talking to Pallas Athene, the political asteroid, and to Saturn, and to Juno, which is the queen consort, and to Vesta, by extension, Neptune, here again, talking to the lunar nodes and the sun and the 7th house. There's a very good chance that this is her chart. And the problem is that Uranus, the disruptor, is sitting right on her Chiron. And so to me, this confirms that there is a disruption in her public duties and public responsibilities that is indeed due to some form of a health crisis, and potentially a very serious one. She's only 42 years old. She seemed to be in the flush of at least physical health. She seemingly without incident pushed out 3 babies, and they are healthy. And so I am concerned about her, and that is all I want to say right now. I want to go on continuing to verify these charts and to see what to see what I can learn from them. And I think that I need to find a chart for her branch of the House of Windsor. I think it will be the coronation of Elizabeth's father, Edward, if I have that correct. Another extraordinary figure in world history, in my view, someone who overcame tremendous personal adversity to take a kind of moral leadership in England during World War II, someone that I admire greatly. And I have mixed feelings about monarchy, by the way, which may better be saved for a more comprehensive discussion. But I think that humans have a problem that requires some form of monarchy. But let's leave that aside. Apart from being an egalitarian person who thinks that everyone should kind of stand up to the challenges of their life. All right, enough said. So here's the 325 penumbral lunar eclipse. So that P is not for partial, it's for penumbral. And it is penumbral eclipse is an eclipse when the moon passes through the outside of the Earth's shadow, the umbra being the internal shadow, the darkest part of the shadow, and the penumbra kind of being a fuzz around the outside. So in some ways not necessarily a very powerful eclipse, but nonetheless one connected with the forthcoming Aries eclipse, which total solar, which really, for those of you who've seen Eye of the Centaur, where I unpack this chart for all 12 signs and rising signs in a kind of a well-run marathon session of readings. I've never done so many readings so close together with somewhere in between. We have an event worth paying attention to. Now, the interesting thing about this eclipse is that there's not many aspects that it is making at the time of the eclipse, because so many points in the chart have numbers significantly higher than the eclipse, which means that they're out of aspect to it, and so many of them have numbers, well, just Mars and Pluto, considerably lower than the eclipse. But according to these delineations of aspects, which are mostly minor aspects, the moon is talking to Jupiter. This aspect is called a sesquisquare. I think it's one of the most important aspects in astrology. So this moon does have some energy to it, but for the most part, it is out of dialogue with most of the other planets. I mean, let's contrast to the moon and Chiron. In this chart, you can see that the moon is making close aspects to everything, as is Chiron. And this is something in the great slot machine or roulette wheel with 20 balls of astrology. But here, the moon is really not as active, for example, as it is in Catherine Middleton's chart and many other charts. But what it is making contact with is worth considering. And so the moon, as far as I can find, you doing a search of about I think Tracy's got now probably about 130 points in the chart, and I can read most of them. But if we only look to 1 degree, which is where I start, I know other astrologers use wider orbs, but because I use so many points, I start at 1 degree or less aspects and then gradually work my way out and base the majority of my reading on the very closest of the aspects. And so here we're talking about the moon at a moon and sun a little more than 5 degrees. Once you're more than 5, you're into the 6th degree. Just like there's no year 0, there's no degree 0. So 5 degrees and 1 arc minute puts you in degree number 6. And when we look at what's in degree number 6, we find the moon. We find this minor point called Ixion, and its glyph actually looks like this. I kind of, and I gave it this glyph. It's an I and an X. It's extremely creative. So Ixion is at 5 and change, and then a centaur called Okuro is at 5 and change. These are not asteroids. Nothing against asteroids, but these are slow-moving solar system objects in our solar system. And the slower something moves, the more influence it tends to have in terms of planets. That could be a weekend-long seminar, and we could look at 10 different mundane charts and decide what has influence and what doesn't have influence. But it is fair enough to say that what moves slowly gains influence because it's moving slowly. Now let's consider the themes. So this is the moon and the sun make an exact square to this point called Ixion. Ixion is a strange critter. Ixion was the king of the Lapiths. It is not named for a god. It's named for a mythological figure, so it is named for a human, not like asteroid Jerry Garcia, which I really should put into more charts. But it is named for a mythological human king who was friends with Zeus, and he is recorded in Greek mythology as the first human to commit murder. That's Ixion. So then Zeus brings him up to Mount Olympus for rehabilitation, and while he's there, I guess showing how much he values his second chance and the gift of the king of the gods to rehabilitate him, he plots a scheme to rape Hera, the wife of Zeus. Yes, that is what I said. Now, this is anyone who knows anything about Greek mythology. The short hairs on your neck will stand up, and you'll think he hatches a plot, or tries to rape Hera? That's one crazy motherfucker, and that is true. So this is somebody with no sense of right or wrong whatsoever. This is not an immoral person. This is a story about an amoral person. So Hera responds to this by creating a visage of herself in the clouds. Greek myths are so interesting. She creates a kind of a body double of herself, an illusory body double of herself in the clouds, which Hera proceeds to rape, however you do that. And what are born are the race of centaurs, except for the ones in the Chiron and Pholus lineage. So there's a million other centaurs. There's Nessus, and there's Asbolus, and there's Theria. There's like a lot of them. And they're generally from 2 branches of a kind of a lineage tree, and one is Chiron, and there are some theories that Chiron and Pholus actually are split off from one myth. I haven't pursued that, but for now we count them as separate. They're separate solar system bodies, and Chiron was wed to I think she was a nymph named Chariklo. And they had a child named Okuro, and Okuro, who is known as a prophetess, appears conjunct the sun. So we are not in the lineage of the Hell's Angels type of centaurs who are the ones who were born from this bizarre pairing of Ixion, said to be the father of the centaurs, and the visage of Hera, queen of the gods, vindictive, jealous person. I mean, the way that you get the idea about Hera is you study people's reactions to her in Greek mythology, and basically she strikes terror into the hearts of people. When I was in Delos, I did visit her temple just to pay homage to her. And Delos basically is a temple to everything, including some Egyptian gods. Worth going. You go to Mykonos, have a good time, then you spend the day on Delos, and you want to go back, and then you party on Mykonos, then you get up in the morning and you go to Delos, which is just 1 nautical mile away. So, Moon Libra, Sun Aries, conjunct Prophetess Okiro, square Ixion, amorality. Amorality. So now reading a chart means coming up with a narrative that fits this. So we want to be listening for prophecies of amorality. Now, what is, except for, well, one of my Substacks, but all of Substack seems to be one giant prophecy of amorality. I like to predict things that happened in the past, but most writers these days are predicting downfalls and further downfalls and ongoing disasters. There's a lot of prophecy about very, very bad things happening. And there's a caution in this chart about paying too much attention to it. And there's also, I think, with any eclipse, there's the removing of a veil. So when you think of an eclipse, you think kind of a curtain parting, and another reality can be seen for a while. Then the curtain closes, and then you have to remember what it was that you saw and what you experienced, and then take that on board. And so that is a key facet of this eclipse, and it is the only one where there is a to the degree alignment. Now, different astrologers read different ways, but I am one of these by the book, to the degree, start there, work your way out. And working our way out, we find that within days of that happening, and by the way, between now and then is the solstice, so I should probably do another one of these videos reading these solstice charts, so stay tuned for that. The sun will make a series of squares to these points. This group, I call this the Capricorn group, all slow movers. That includes Ixion, Quaoar, Pholus, the second centaur, and Cupido. What are those weird planets without a body? That's at 8. That's at 9. That's at 10. And so this group, to me, represents family baggage. It's all about family baggage. And the thing to do with family baggage is, you either huck the whole thing into a dumpster and lose many valuable lessons and artifacts and heirlooms, or you go through it and you find out what is going on. Now, the American way to do things is just to forget it. It's just to dig a hole in the backyard and bury the past, and unfortunately that does not work very well as something to get a positive, beneficial karmic outcome in any way. So better to not do that. Better to pick through the baggage. And when the sun is square these points, you will have a chance. And picking through the baggage does not mean it does not mean confronting people. For example, in my life, I had very negative, nervous parents. The word nervous was used a lot in my childhood. They were negative, and nervous meaning agitated. So much of my life is a story in untangling that agitation and not taking it as any kind of a positive example. It's certainly nothing that I aspire to. But then there comes unhooking the emotional connections to that vibrational quality, and also understanding what led to it from previous generations. And so one type of study that you can do when you've got this kind of an aspect pointing to ancestral material is to, when you think of your mother, think of her parents. When you think of your father, think of his parents. And if you can get to the level of the great-grandparents, then you go to the level of the great-grandparents and tell yourself remember what you know about them and start to put that together and not simply assume this is the way things are, but actually suss out and experiment with how they got to be that way. This is excellent exercise to do for any kind of an eclipse, because eclipses are release points, and I think it will be possible to leave a lot of this darkness behind if we do it consciously. Okay, so thank you for tuning in. Let me pull up a calendar. We've still got a little time before the spring equinox. That's in a few days. So look for another one of these videos emailed to in-house subscribers, posted to YouTube, and sent to Substack subscribers, covering the equinox chart, the ingress of the sun into Aries. I'm coming to you on what feels like an absolutely glorious spring day. It's a late winter day, but March is kind of around these parts anyway. Came in with a lot of rain, and then skipping the lion part and going straight to the lamb part. Okay, well, thank you for tuning in. Thanks for joining me. Thank you for your business and your trust. If you're watching on YouTube, please hit that like button and subscribe to the YouTube channel. And as I'm sure you know, all of this work that I do, these many productions that I offer you, are all supported by your subscriptions to Planet Waves. I'm someone very concerned about making sure that people get far more value than the money they offer, and I also think that your time is worth a lot more than your money, and your trust is worth a lot more than your time. So thanks for all of that. Lots of love, and bye for now.